She laughed while I was still on the floor. That's the moment I stopped being her mother-in-law and became her entertainment. I can still hear that sound, Vanessa's laughter, sharp and cruel, echoing through the kitchen as I struggled to get up. My palms were bleeding from where I hit the tile, my hips screaming in pain, but all she did was stand there with that smug little smirk. "Careful, Mom," she said, emphasizing the word like a joke. "At your age, one fall could, well, you know." Her nails tapped against her phone as she recorded a short clip, probably to send to her sister or her group chat. I wasn't sure what hurt more, my knee or my dignity. "Vanessa," I managed to whisper, holding onto the counter, "help me up." She tilted her head, pretending to think. "Oh, I'd love to, but my chiropractor said I shouldn't lift heavy things." Then she turned and walked away. Just like that. The smell of burnt coffee filled the air. Somewhere in the living room, the TV blared some reality show about spoiled families fighting over inheritance. How ironic. I sat there frozen on the cold floor, wondering how a house I built with love could now feel like a stranger's home. That house, my house, once smelled of pancakes and fresh laundry. My late husband Frank and I bought it in 1983 for $94,000. He fixed every broken pipe himself. After he died, I refinanced the mortgage, worked double shifts at St. Mary's Hospital just to keep it paid off. 40 years of sweat and sacrifice, only for my own son to let her call the shots now. I was still catching my breath when I heard a small voice. "Grandma," it was Lily, my granddaughter, standing at the doorway, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Her eyes were wide with confusion. "Grandma, are you hurt?" I forced a smile. "Just a little tumble, honey." Her tiny eyebrows furrowed. Mommy was laughing. That cut deeper than the fall. I reached out and touched her cheek. "Don't worry, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups forget their manners." She nodded slowly, though her eyes said she understood more than she should. That night when my son David came home, I told him what happened. He sighed before I even finished the first sentence. "Mom, Vanessa said you tripped because of your old slippers again. You know how she worries about your balance." "Worries," I repeated. She stood there and laughed, David. "She didn't even try to help me." He rubbed the bridge of his nose the way he always did when he didn't want to hear me. "Mom, please. Vanessa's been under a lot of stress lately. Let's not make this bigger than it is." "Bigger than it is." My voice cracked. "Your wife mocked me while I was lying on the floor." He stood up, jaw tight. "Mom, maybe you just misheard. Please, let's not fight again." I looked at him, the same boy I'd once stayed awake for 3 nights nursing through pneumonia, now defending the woman who treated me like garbage. I didn't say another word. I couldn't. That night I lay in bed staring at the ceiling fan spinning above me. Every turn of the blade sounded like a whisper. She laughed. She laughed. She laughed. I thought about the past few months, how they'd invited me to move in after my hip surgery, insisting it was for my safety. How Vanessa made a big show of clearing out the guest room, then slowly took away everything that felt like mine. My old dishes vanished, replaced by sleek white plates I couldn't afford. The family photos disappeared from the hallway. Even the living room chair I used for years had been pushed to the corner to make space for Lily's toys. In reality, it wasn't my home anymore. I was just an extra mouth, an extra problem. Around 3 a.m., I got up to get some water. That's when I noticed the tiny red light blinking above the kitchen door. A security camera, one of those smart models with night vision and cloud storage. Vanessa had bragged about it last month. "This baby catches everything in 4K, she'd said, proudly showing off the app on her phone. Even in the dark. Everything. I looked up at that tiny blinking light and felt something shift inside me. Maybe it had caught the fall. Maybe it had recorded her laughter, too. The next morning, I pretended nothing happened. I made pancakes for Lily, smiled at Vanessa, even thanked her for checking on me. Her eyes narrowed, suspicious. But I wasn't the same woman who fell yesterday. As I cleared the table, I glanced at that camera again. For the first time in months, I felt something other than pain purpose. If that camera had truly seen what happened, then one day the whole family would see it too. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon. I went back to my room, sat by the window and whispered to myself, "Go ahead and laugh, Vanessa. Laugh while you still can. Because deep down, I knew karma was patient, and I'd just found her favorite witness. When I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror that morning, I barely recognized the woman staring back. The wrinkles around my eyes weren't just from age, they were from worry, the kind that seeps into your bones after years of pretending you're okay. I used to be strong. People at St. Mary's Hospital called me the Iron Nurse. For 38 years, I worked the night shift ER, mostly patching up strangers, holding dying hands, cleaning blood no one else wanted to touch. I'd seen men cry, mothers break, and miracles I still can't explain. But nothing in all those years prepared me for what it feels like to be unwanted in your own family. My name is Nora Ellington, 68 years old, retired nurse, widow, and mother to one son who doesn't remember who taught him to pray. David was born in 1984, 2 months early and barely 5 pounds. I spent nights in the NICU whispering promises through glass. "You'll make it, baby. I'll never let you fall." And I kept that promise. At least I thought I did. When Frank, my husband, passed away from a stroke 12 years ago, I nearly lost myself. He was my anchor, my reason to laugh. We'd been married 41 years. Together, we'd paid off our mortgage, saved around $180,000 in a modest 401k, and dreamed of buying a little RV to see the country after retirement. But instead of driving to the Grand Canyon, I drove to physical therapy. 2 months after Frank's funeral, I slipped at the hospital cafeteria and fractured my hip. That accident changed everything. David insisted I shouldn't live alone anymore. "Mom, it's not safe," he said, holding my hand. "You'll move in with us. Vanessa and I already talked about it." He meant well at first. When I sold my house, the one Frank built with his own hands, it sold for $327,000. I gave David $200,000 of that to help with the mortgage. I thought I was helping them start fresh. Vanessa even hugged me that day. "Thank you, Mom," she said, smiling wide. "Your family. We'll take care of you." Those words, they still echo sometimes like a cruel joke. The first few months were fine. Lily would sneak into my room every morning, climb into bed, and ask for pancakes. Vanessa pretended to be polite, made coffee for both of us, left me notes on the fridge. Then, little by little, the tone changed. "Mom, could you not leave your pill bottles on the counter? Mom, that blanket smells like mothballs. Mom, maybe you shouldn't walk around without your cane. It makes the neighbors nervous." Neighbors. She actually said that. By the time my hip healed, I'd become invisible in my own home. Vanessa started locking certain cabinets for safety, she claimed. My name disappeared from the mailbox. Even the Wi-Fi password changed. I should have spoken up. But you see, when you've spent your whole life caring for others, it's hard to believe you're allowed to care for yourself. One afternoon, I went to the diner downtown Millie's place. It's where Frank and I used to get pancakes after Sunday service. Millie still works there, same gray bun, same lipstick that bleeds past her lip line. She saw me limping in and said, "Well, if it isn't Nurse Nora, haven't seen you in a month of Sundays." I told her I was living with David now. She gave me that look the kind older women share when they already know the rest of the story. "Don't let them make you small," she said, topping off my coffee. "You built your life. Don't let them steal your peace." Her words sank into me like medicine, because lately peace felt like something that belonged to other people. That night, I sat in my room scrolling through old photos on my phone, David's graduation, Frank fixing the porch, Lily's first birthday. In every picture, I could see my younger self, proud, tired, but alive. Now I felt like a ghost, haunting the walls of my own legacy. Vanessa's laughter from yesterday still rang in my ears. I kept replaying it frame by frame in my mind. The fall, the humiliation, Lily's tiny voice asking if I was okay. Then I remembered something important, something I hadn't noticed before. When I slipped, I fell near the kitchen island right beneath the corner where that little black security camera hung. And it wasn't just one camera. Vanessa had 3 of them, one by the front door, one by the kitchen, and one in the living room, all synced to her phone. If any of those cameras caught her laughing, it wouldn't just be my word against hers anymore. I knew the footage had to be stored somewhere, the cloud, the app, maybe even David's laptop. I didn't know how to access it yet. but for the first time in months, I felt my nurse instincts kicking back in, calm, patient, methodical. I'd spent a lifetime finding answers, blood tests, vital signs, hidden symptoms. I could find this, too. When you've spent nearly 4 decades watching life slip away in hospital rooms, you learn something about timing. You wait for the right moment to act. And my moment was coming. As I turned off the lamp that night, I whispered to myself, let her think I'm old. Let her think I'm weak. But she's forgotten who I used to be. Sunday dinners used to mean something in our family. Frank and I started the tradition decades ago, roast beef, mashed potatoes, the smell of gravy thick in the air. Even after he passed, I tried to keep it alive. Family eats together, stays together, he used to say. Now it was just another performance in Vanessa's little show. She called it family night. The irony wasn't lost on me. The table was set like a magazine spread, candles, folded napkins, even a centerpiece of white roses that smelled fake. David was at the head of the table scrolling through his phone. Lily sat beside me trying to cut her meat with a butter knife. Vanessa moved around like a hostess at a country club, her smile tight, her heels clicking. She poured herself a glass of white wine, the expensive kind, $42 a bottle, and offered David some. "Mom," she said sweetly, glancing my way. "Oh, sorry, you can't have wine with your medication, right?" I looked at her, then at David. He didn't look up. "I'm fine with water," I said quietly. "Good," she said with a grin that never reached her eyes. "Wouldn't want another accident." My heart skipped. David chuckled lightly. "Vanessa." What she said innocently. "I'm just saying we should be careful. After all, we wouldn't want Mom falling again, would we?" The words sliced through the air like glass. Lily froze, fork halfway to her mouth. I forced a smile. Accidents happen, but they also get recorded these days, don't they? For the briefest moment, Vanessa's expression faltered. Then she laughed. "Oh, that little camera, David installed it for safety. So we can check on Lily when we're away." I murmured. "How thoughtful." David cleared his throat, trying to change the subject. "So, Mom, how's your hip feeling lately? Maybe we should look into one of those senior wellness programs downtown." Vanessa jumped in before I could answer. "Yes, they do chair yoga and watercolor painting. It might be good for her mood." My mood. I took a slow sip of water, feeling the burn of humiliation spread across my chest. I'd survived 38 years in trauma wards, holding men twice their size down during seizures, and now they were talking about me like I was a toddler. "Maybe," I said, softly, "but I think I'll stick to walking, thank you." "Oh, please don't," she said, still smiling. "You remember what happened last time you tried walking?" David laughed under his breath. It wasn't cruel, not like hers, but it was worse. It was silent agreement. I wanted to leave the table. But Lily looked up at me, her little eyes filled with something between confusion and sadness. She didn't understand all of it, but she knew something wasn't right. So I stayed. For her. Halfway through dinner, Vanessa brought out dessert, a lemon meringue pie she claimed was store-bought because some of us don't like homemade things anymore. She served David a big slice, then Lily, then herself. When she finally placed a plate in front of me, she said, "Oh, I almost forgot. No sugar for you, right?" "Doctor's orders." "I'm not diabetic," I said flatly. She blinked, pretending surprise. "Oh, I must have misheard. My mistake." Lily tugged my sleeve. "Grandma, you can have some of mine." Before I could respond, Vanessa said sharply, "Lily, don't talk with your mouth full." Something inside me cracked. I looked across the table at my son. "David, do you hear how she talks to me?" He sighed, already exhausted. "Mom, please, let's not. She mocks me. In front of you." "In front of your daughter?" Vanessa leaned forward, her smile gone now. Maybe if you didn't make everything about you, dinner would be more pleasant." "Everything about me," I said, my voice shaking. "I gave you this house. I paid off half the mortgage with my savings." Her eyes widened, a spark of satisfaction flashing across them. "Oh, so that's what this is about." "Money." David's fork clattered onto his plate. "Stop it, both of you." The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. I looked at my son, my baby, and realized I had lost him long ago. Not to war, not to death, but to comfort, to convenience. to her. Vanessa stood, gathering plates. "You know what, David? Maybe we should start having family dinner without the drama, for Lily's sake." My voice was barely a whisper. "For Lily's sake, you should learn respect." She froze mid-step. Then she leaned down close enough that only I could hear her. "Respect is earned, Nora. And you've overstayed your welcome." She walked away, humming. David didn't defend me. He just sat there, staring at his plate like he wanted to disappear. Lily slipped her small hand into mine under the table. "Grandma," she whispered, "you didn't do anything wrong." I squeezed her hand, blinking back tears. "No, sweetheart," I said softly. "But sometimes people don't see the truth until it's right in front of them." And as I looked toward the kitchen, I saw that little red camera light blinking again. Quiet, patient watching, recording everything. You never forget the first time you're humiliated in public by someone who calls you family. It happened 3 days after that dinner, the one where Vanessa told me I'd overstayed my welcome. I was still shaken, but I tried to convince myself she'd just been drinking, that maybe it was stress talking. I wanted to believe there was still decency left in her. I was wrong. That Thursday morning, Vanessa asked if I could help her set up for the neighborhood garden brunch. It was something she hosted every spring. All the wives from the cul-de-sac brought salads and gossip. I didn't want to go, but she said it would look rude if you didn't at least show your face. So I agreed. By noon, the backyard looked like something out of a magazine. White folding chairs, lemonade pitchers, glistening in the sun, soft jazz playing from a Bluetooth speaker. The air smelled like citrus and money. I wore my pale blue dress, the same one I'd worn to David's wedding. My knees ached, but I smiled anyway, carrying a tray of finger sandwiches out to the patio. Vanessa was in full hostess mode, laughing too loud, complimenting herself every few minutes. "Oh, this setup. All my idea. You know how I love entertaining." The women adored her. At least they pretended to. I overheard one whisper, "She's got it all together. If only they knew." Then it happened. I was carrying a pitcher of lemonade when my right knee buckled. The pain shot up my leg, sharp and quick, and the pitcher slipped from my hands. It shattered across the deck, glass, ice, and juice splashing everywhere. Every head turned. "Oh my God," Vanessa gasped dramatically. "Mom, are you okay?" The way she said Mom made it sound like mockery, not concern. "I'm fine," I muttered, trying to steady myself. But she didn't help me up. Instead, she put her hands on her hips and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "See, this is why I keep telling David we need to consider options." Someone asked options. Vanessa smiled, lowering her voice just enough to sound sweet but making sure everyone could still hear. "You know, assisted living, somewhere with people her own age, somewhere safe." The air left my lungs. I stood there frozen, surrounded by women holding their mimosas like weapons. "Vanessa," I said quietly. "That's not funny." "Oh, come on," she said, tilting her head. "It's not a joke. We just worry, that's all. You've had so many close calls lately. What if you fall when no one's home? What if Lily sees something traumatic?" Her voice was sugar on the outside, venom on the inside. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to scream. But instead, I bent down slowly, painfully, and started gathering the broken glass with my bare hands. That's when I heard the whispers. "Poor thing. She should really be in a home. Vanessa's such a saint for taking her in." The words stung worse than the tiny cuts on my palms. "Mom, stop," Vanessa said suddenly. "You're bleeding." She grabbed a towel and pressed it into my hand, pretending to care. But she looked over her shoulder and smirked at the women. "She's so stubborn, isn't she? Always has to do everything herself." I looked up at her. Our eyes met for half a second. She knew exactly what she was doing, and she enjoyed it. That was the moment something inside me shifted. I wasn't just hurt anymore. I was done. When the guests left, Vanessa acted as if nothing had happened. She hummed while cleaning up, scrolling on her phone, probably reading compliments from her friends. David came home later that evening. I heard them talking in the kitchen. "She fell again," Vanessa said. "Oh no," David replied. "Was she hurt?" "Not really. But it's getting worse, David. You have to face it. She can't live here forever." I stood at the end of the hallway, unseen, clutching the banister. "I just don't want to make her feel like a burden." David said softly. Vanessa sighed dramatically. She isn't a burden. She's just old, and accidents keep happening. What if she sues us one day? We have to think about Lily, too. That line, "what if she sues us," nearly made me laugh out loud. Imagine that the woman who gave them $200,000 being accused of endangering their finances. I walked back to my room and closed the door. My hands still stung from the glass, but I didn't bother bandaging them. I wanted to remember the pain. It made everything clearer. I sat on the edge of my bed and looked up at the small camera in the hallway, another of Vanessa's gadgets. If that thing had caught even a fraction of what happened that afternoon, then maybe the truth was already waiting for me. For a moment, I pictured Frank sitting beside me, his calloused hand on mine, that gentle look he used to give when I came home exhausted from the hospital. He'd say, "Nora, you don't fight back with anger. You fight back with proof." And that's exactly what I intended to find. The next morning, I opened my laptop and searched how to access home security footage from smart cameras. I might have been old, but I wasn't helpless. Vanessa thought she'd embarrassed me in front of the whole neighborhood. She had no idea she'd just handed me the weapon that would destroy her. I woke up that morning to the sound of drawers opening. Not the usual creak of Lily sneaking in for cartoons. This was sharper, heavier. Voices carried down the hallway. "David, just take those boxes to the garage," Vanessa said. "I already labeled everything." I pulled on my robe and stepped into the hallway. "What's going on?" Vanessa turned, feigning surprise. "Oh, good morning. We're just, doing some organizing." I looked past her. Two of my old boxes, the ones I kept under the bed filled with documents, Frank's letters and the deed copy from the house I'd sold, sat open on the floor. My stomach dropped. "Those are my personal things." "Oh, I know," she said casually. "I just thought we'd help you declutter. You've been keeping so much old paperwork around, and we really don't have the storage space." "They were under my bed," I said, my voice trembling. "You had no right to touch them." David appeared from the guest room holding a small file folder. My folder. "Mom," he started Vanessa's, just trying to help. "You've got so many papers, and it's not safe to leave sensitive stuff lying around." "Sensitive?" I repeated, staring at him. "That's my life in there. Our life, your father's," he exhaled. "That's another thing. We need to talk about the money, Mom." My throat went dry. "What money?" "The $200,000 you transferred when you sold your old house." I froze. "What about it?" He shifted awkwardly. "It's complicated. The bank said we can't keep it all under our name unless you're officially part of the property title. The lawyer suggested we consolidate the accounts, move everything under the household trust for tax reasons." I blinked, not understanding at first. "Under your household? It's just paperwork," he said quickly. "It won't change anything. You'll still be here, Mom." Vanessa folded her arms. "Exactly. You'll have everything you need. We'll manage it for you. It'll be simpler. Simpler." That word again, like I was a bill they wanted to cancel. I stepped forward. "No one touches my money." David sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Mom, please don't make this hard. The lawyer said, then let me talk to the lawyer myself." Vanessa laughed softly. "Oh, Nora, that's really not necessary. You wouldn't understand all the paperwork. It's complicated legal language." "That did it. Don't you dare talk to me like I'm senile," I said, my voice sharp. "I worked 40 years in a hospital. I signed more medical documents than you've ever read in your life." David's tone hardened. "Mom, we're just trying to protect you." I stared at him, the boy who once held my hand on the first day of kindergarten now standing between me and my dignity. "Protect me," I whispered. From what my own name on a bank account, Vanessa stepped closer. "From yourself. You're not thinking clearly. You've been forgetful lately. You nearly fell again last week and you keep misplacing things." She turned to David, voice full of fake sympathy. "I told you, honey, this is exactly what the doctor warned us about." I gasped. "What doctor? What are you talking about?" David avoided my eyes. "Vanessa mentioned you've been confused lately. Maybe it's early signs of what I demanded." Vanessa's lips curved. "Cognitive decline." The world tilted. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The betrayal wasn't loud or sudden. It was quiet, planned, executed like a surgery I didn't consent to. "Get out," I said softly. David frowned. "Mom," I said, "get out of my room." They didn't move. Vanessa crossed her arms. "Nora, please be reasonable." "I am being reasonable. You've stolen from me, insulted me, and now you're trying to paint me as crazy." She smiled that calm, poisonous smile. "You're overreacting. And honestly, David, this proves my point. She's getting unstable." That's when I snapped. I grabbed the folder from David's hands, clutching it to my chest. "You want my money? You'll have to drag it out of me." Vanessa stepped forward. "Fine, if that's how you want it. But you might want to remember whose name is on this house, and it's not yours anymore." I froze. "What did you just say?" She smirked. "We refinanced last month. You know, for the lower interest rate, David and I signed everything over. The title doesn't have your name on it. The words cut deeper than any knife. Everything, my savings, my home, my security, gone just like that. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. Instead, I did what I'd done my whole life. When chaos hit, I went silent." David placed a hand on my shoulder. "Mom, please. We're just trying to make things easier for everyone." I shrugged him off. For everyone or for her, Vanessa turned to leave. "You'll thank us one day." I waited until they were gone before I let the tears come. For the first time in years, I cried not for Frank, not for my pain, but for the version of my son that no longer existed. When I finally lifted my head, I saw the little red light blinking above the doorway, another camera silently watching. I stared at it through blurry eyes. "If you're recording this," I whispered, "make sure you capture everything." Because somewhere deep inside, through all the grief and betrayal, one thought began to burn. They might have taken my money, but I still had the truth, and the truth had witnesses. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat by the window, the moon spilling silver light across the carpet, holding Frank's old flannel shirt in my lap, like a relic from another world. The house was silent, but I could still hear their voices echoing through the walls, Vanessa's cold precision, David's weary indifference. Somewhere down the hall, the little red light of the hallway camera blinked steadily, like a heartbeat I could no longer trust. I'd spent my entire life fixing things, people, problems, broken bones, broken hearts. But some things you can't stitch back together. Not when it's your own family tearing the seams. When I first met Frank in 1975, he was 22, just back from the Navy, working double shifts at the gas station outside of town. He smelled like motor oil and hope. We didn't have much, just a rusted Ford, a one-bedroom apartment, and big dreams we couldn't afford. But we built everything together. We worked hard, fought fair, forgave fast. We were partners. When David came along, I thought life couldn't be kinder. He had Frank's blue eyes, my stubborn jaw. He was the reason I took night shifts at St. Mary's so I could be home when he woke up. We never had much money, but we had pride. I remember coming home one morning, still in my scrubs, finding Frank asleep on the couch with David on his chest, both of them covered in sawdust from the half-built crib. He opened one eye and said, "We'll make it, Nora. I promise." And we did for a long time. But promises don't stop time. They don't stop death. Frank was gone by the time he was 61. One minute he was telling me about fixing the porch, the next he was clutching his chest, eyes wide with confusion. I did CPR for 6 minutes before the ambulance arrived. I knew the moment they loaded him up that I'd already lost him. The day of the funeral, David stood beside me like a statue. He was 30 by then, already married to Vanessa. She looked beautiful that day, the perfect daughter-in-law holding my hand, crying with sympathy that I now know was only for show. After Frank's death, I tried to fill the silence with routine. I gardened, volunteered at the clinic, watched Lily after school. I thought I was doing fine until the hip fracture changed everything. It's funny how one small fall can rewrite your whole life. At first, moving in with David and Vanessa seemed like a blessing. I told myself it was temporary, that I'd help around the house, maybe cook, maybe keep Lily company. But slowly the walls started closing in. The house wasn't a home anymore, it was a system. Everything had a rule, a schedule, a label, where my coffee mug could go, how loud the TV could be, when I could open the windows. I used to heal soldiers in trauma bays, calm, screaming parents in emergency rooms. Now I was tiptoeing in my own kitchen, afraid to breathe too loud. But what hurt most wasn't the control, it was the erasure. The way Vanessa started calling me her. The way David began saying my house instead of ours. It wasn't the loss of money that broke me, it was the loss of mattering. I used to think being a good mother meant giving everything you had and asking for nothing back. Now I know that's how you disappear. Sometimes I wonder if Frank would recognize the woman I've become. Quiet, careful, small. He used to call me Nora the Hurricane. You don't let anyone tell you who you are, he'd laugh. You blow through their nonsense. But now I'm the breeze left after the storm. Still somewhere deep down, the hurricane hadn't died. It was sleeping, waiting. Because when Vanessa looked at me that morning, holding my folder like she owned it, I saw something in her eyes, the same arrogance I'd seen in countless patients' families when they thought money could buy decency. But I'd learned long ago truth has a way of cutting through everything, and truth leaves scars. Around midnight, I took out the old shoebox from under my bed, the one labeled Frank. Inside were faded photos, a few letters, and a tiny black USB drive. It was something he'd given me years ago for safekeeping, he'd said. He used to work part-time doing IT for the hospital before he retired. He always backed things up, even the security footage from our old home's cameras. I smiled through my tears. Frank had believed in evidence, and I suddenly realized I did too. The modern version of that USB drive was sitting right above my head, blinking red every night. That camera was more than a witness, it was my second chance. As I placed the flannel shirt back in the box, I whispered, "You were right, Frank. Proof speaks louder than pain." Tomorrow I would stop being the victim in this story. Tomorrow I'd start collecting evidence. It was Saturday morning when the first hint of hope came from the smallest voice in the house. Lily knocked softly on my door just after breakfast, her curls still messy from sleep. She peeked in, clutching her tablet like she was hiding something. "Grandma," she whispered, "can I show you something?" I smiled. "Of course, sweetheart, come in." She climbed onto my bed, crossing her legs the way only children can, and opened the tablet. On the screen was the home security app, the same one Vanessa used to brag about controlling from her phone. "I was watching videos of me and Mommy baking cookies," she said proudly. "Look." She pressed play. The screen showed the kitchen sunlight pouring through the window, flour everywhere. Lily laughing as Vanessa posed for the camera. It was harmless, ordinary, the kind of moment families are supposed to cherish. But then Lily swiped to the next clip, and my heart stopped. It was me, on the floor. The video showed the day I fell clear as daylight. The kitchen tiles, the dropped bowl, my leg twisting beneath me. And there she was, Vanessa standing in the doorway, arms crossed, smirking. Then came the sound, her laugh. Cold, sharp, cruel. "Careful, Mom," she said, her voice dripping with venom. "One fall could finish the job." And then she turned away. The footage ended there, but the silence in the room was deafening. Lily looked up at me, confused. Why was Mommy laughing? "Grandma? You fell down. That's not funny." I couldn't breathe. My hands trembled as I took the tablet from her. "Where did you get this?" I asked gently. "It's on the app," she said. "Mommy said it records everything, but she said not to touch the ones with red dots." "Red dots?" She nodded. "The ones that mean it's locked. Mommy says Daddy can't see those." I swallowed hard. "Can you show me where?" She hesitated, glancing toward the door like she was afraid of getting in trouble. "It's okay, sweetheart," I whispered. "It'll be our secret." She handed me the tablet. I tapped the corner of the screen. The security app logo glowed, and a list of recordings appeared. Most were labeled with dates and short descriptions, but some had small red icons beside them, encrypted files. Hidden ones. I clicked one. It asked for a password. Lily frowned. "I don't know the code, Grandma, but Mommy says it's something easy to remember. She always uses my birthday." My heart pounded. "Your birthday? Which format?" She giggled. "Oh, she always says it's backwards. 2014-06-12. That's me." I typed in 2014-12. The file opened. My hands shook as the new footage loaded another angle from the kitchen camera, a wide shot that captured everything. This one continued longer than the previous clip. After Vanessa laughed and walked away, Lily entered the frame clutching her teddy bear, whispering, "Grandma, are you okay?" I watched myself smile weakly, hiding the pain, lying for the sake of peace. But then something else caught my eye. Something I hadn't noticed that day. Vanessa came back into frame a minute later, holding her phone, smirking. She looked straight at the camera as if admiring her work. And then she said something that made my blood run cold. "I can't wait to show your son how helpless you've become." She smiled directly into the lens like she was speaking to me through time. The clip ended. I sat there, frozen, my breath shallow. Lily looked at me, eyes wide. "Grandma, are you mad?" I blinked back tears. "No, honey, I'm proud of you. You just helped Grandma remember something important." I kissed her forehead, my mind already racing. If these videos were stored on the app, that meant they were also backed up to the cloud, maybe even on David's laptop. When Lily left the room, I locked the door and sat at my desk, opening my old notebook. For years, I'd used it for recipes and grocery lists. Now it became a war plan. Step 1, access the security account. Step 2, find a way to save the footage before Vanessa deletes it. Step 3, wait for the right moment. I spent the afternoon researching how smart home systems work, their storage backup options, hidden folders. Every answer led me deeper into a mix of frustration and adrenaline. By evening, I found what I needed: a way to sync the footage to my own email through the shared device option. But it required one thing: the verification code that would appear on Vanessa's phone when I tried to log in. That meant timing. That meant risk. But after what they did to me, fear didn't matter anymore. That night at dinner, I pretended everything was normal. Vanessa bragged about her new landscaping plans. David nodded, distracted. Lily hummed softly beside me. Halfway through the meal, Vanessa's phone buzzed on the counter. I saw the notification light up: Home Vision Access Code 742983. She glanced at it, frowned, and muttered spam before turning it face down. My pulse thundered. I excused myself to the bathroom, pulling my phone from my robe pocket, fingers trembling as I typed in the code. Home Vision access granted. And just like that, I was in. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just saved the files quietly to my cloud, naming them simply Proof 1, Proof 2, Proof 3. When I returned to the table, Vanessa barely looked up. "Everything okay, Nora?" she asked. I met her eyes, calm, steady. "Perfect," I said. "Everything's just perfect." She smirked, thinking she'd won. But for the first time in months, I felt alive. Because now I had more than bruises and memories. Now I had evidence. And evidence doesn't lie. After that night, I stopped crying. I stopped pleading, explaining, or trying to make David see what his wife really was. Instead, I smiled. I cooked breakfast. I folded laundry. I said thank you when Vanessa barked orders, and I even laughed at her fake jokes. Because I knew something she didn't. Every insult, every sneer, every cold shoulder, it all became part of my collection. Proof. When you've been a nurse for almost 40 years, you learn to keep your hands steady, even when your heart is breaking. Now I was applying that same discipline not to save a life, but to save my dignity. Vanessa thought she'd won. She strutted around the house like a queen, talking about how she'd finally brought order into her home. She even started telling her friends that I was getting forgetful, planting seeds of doubt before I even had a chance to defend myself. Poor Nora, I overheard her say on the phone one morning. She just isn't herself anymore. I worry about leaving her alone with Lily. I stood in the kitchen doorway, silent, the camera above us blinking red. Every word she spoke became another nail in her own coffin. I had uploaded 3 videos already: the fall, her laughter, her mocking words about assisted living. But I needed more. I needed a moment that would strip away every excuse, every lie. So I waited. And patience, I've learned, is a weapon most people underestimate. Days passed. I played my part perfectly. When she forgot to leave me dinner, I smiled and said I wasn't hungry. When she told David I'd misplaced my pills, I nodded and apologized. When she called me sweetheart, in that patronizing tone, I looked her straight in the eye and said, "You're too kind, Vanessa." Because I knew that cameras record everything, including irony. One afternoon, I heard her bragging on the phone again, this time louder than usual. "David doesn't see it," she laughed. "His mother's losing it, and it's honestly kind of pathetic. You should have seen her face when I mentioned the nursing home, priceless." I quietly stepped into the living room. The hallway camera caught her full profile, her wine glass in hand, arrogance on display. "Yeah," she said, smirking. "Once the paperwork's final, we'll rent out her old room, maybe an office. Oh, and that money, already gone, she'll never know." I didn't say a word. Later that night, when she left for her yoga class, I sat at the kitchen table with Lily coloring. She hummed softly, lost in her little world, and then she said something that nearly stopped my heart. "Mommy said Grandma's leaving soon." I froze. "Leaving?" Lily nodded, coloring a flower purple. "She said you're going to a big house with lots of old people. But don't worry. She said they'll have Jell-O." I swallowed hard, forcing a smile. Did she now? That night I checked Vanessa's planner. She always left it on the counter. On next week's page in neat handwriting, it read, "Meeting Golden Oaks Nursing Facility, 10 a.m. So that was her next move. She wanted me gone before David even realized what was happening. Fine, let her think she was in control. The following morning, I baked cinnamon rolls, her favorite, and brewed fresh coffee. She was surprised, almost wary. "Well," she said, smirking, "someone's in a good mood." "I thought I'd make breakfast for the family," I replied sweetly. "It's the least I can do after everything you've done for me." She laughed, thinking it was surrender. "That's the spirit." I poured her coffee, set her plate, and sat down across from her. "Vanessa," I said gently, "I just wanted to thank you for looking out for me, for Lily, for David. You've done so much." Her eyes softened. Pride, ego, arrogance. "Well, someone has to keep this house running." "Oh, I know," I said. "You keep everything recorded, don't you?" She frowned. "What?" I smiled. "You're very thorough. Cameras, schedules, notes. It must be exhausting." Her face tensed for a split second, a flicker of recognition that maybe I knew more than I should. But I changed the subject, humming softly, letting her think she'd imagined it. When she left the house that afternoon, I opened David's laptop in his office. I'd learned his password weeks ago, the same one he used for everything Lily 2020. I logged into the shared storage folder for the cameras. There it was, every clip, every date, every cruel moment neatly time-stamped. But there was one more file I hadn't seen before. It was labeled simply, "Footage, Feb 16 Private." I clicked it open. The camera angle showed the kitchen again, but this time it wasn't about me. It showed Vanessa talking to someone on speakerphone. "Yeah, the transfer went through," she said. "She signed everything without reading. The old bat trusts me completely." I leaned closer, barely breathing. The voice on the other end was male, unfamiliar. "Good. Make sure she doesn't back out. Once the funds clear, disappear the paper trail." Vanessa laughed. "Oh, don't worry. By the time she realizes it, she'll be drooling in a nursing home." I paused the video, my hand over my mouth. It wasn't just cruelty. It was theft, planned, coordinated, deliberate. I copied the file to my flash drive, labeled it Proof 4. As I ejected the drive, I caught my reflection in the laptop screen, and for the first time in months, I didn't see a victim. I saw a nurse preparing for surgery, calm, precise, dangerous. The next morning, I made David's favorite breakfast eggs, bacon, and toast, and kissed Lily on the forehead before she went to school. Vanessa looked at me with suspicion. "You seem different," she said. I smiled, steady and sure. Maybe I finally realized what I'm capable of. She frowned but didn't press further. When the front door closed behind them, I looked at the blinking red light above the kitchen, that faithful, silent witness. "Don't worry," I whispered. "You've done your job. Now it's my turn." The house was quiet again, but for the first time in a long, long while, I wasn't afraid of the silence, because the silence now belonged to me. It was a Tuesday morning, gray sky, cold rain, the kind that makes everything feel heavier. Vanessa woke me early. She was already dressed in a navy blue suit, her hair tied tight, her perfume sharp enough to sting. "Get dressed," she said briskly. "We have a meeting at 10, the lawyer's office. It's just paperwork, nothing complicated." I looked up from my cup of tea. "Paperwork for what?" She smiled. "To formalize things. David's been meaning to handle the estate matters for months now. It's better for everyone. I knew exactly what everyone meant. Still, I nodded, pretending confusion. All right, dear, whatever you think is best. Her eyes glinted. She thought I'd surrendered. The law office sat on Main Street between the pharmacy and the diner where Frank and I used to have lunch. I hadn't been back here in years. Walking past that familiar stretch of sidewalk, I could almost hear Frank's laughter, feel his calloused hand holding mine. Inside, the air smelled of lemon polish and old paper. A secretary offered us coffee. I declined. Vanessa didn't. David arrived a few minutes later looking tired, the kind of tired that comes from denial. His tie was crooked, his shirt wrinkled. "Mom," he said softly, kissing my cheek. "Let's just get this over with. Okay. Vanessa says it'll simplify things." Simplify. Another one of their favorite words. The lawyer entered a man in his 40s named Mr. Henderson. He greeted us politely but avoided my eyes the way people do when they know something's wrong but pretend not to. He opened a folder. "Mrs. Ellington, this meeting is just to finalize a few documents regarding the house and financial accounts. Nothing drastic. Your son and daughter-in-law simply want to ensure everything is legally secure in case of emergencies." "Emergencies," I repeated. David cleared his throat. "You know mom health stuff. We just need someone to handle things if something happens to you." Vanessa nodded sympathetically. "It's called a durable power of attorney. It's standard for your age. Lots of families do it." I smiled faintly. Of course. Lots of families. Henderson slid a stack of papers across the table. "These authorize David to manage your financial assets and property on your behalf. Once signed, he'll be able to pay bills, handle accounts, that sort of thing." Vanessa leaned closer. "It's just to make life easier, Mom. You won't even notice a difference." I looked down at the documents. My name printed neatly in black ink, Nora Ellington, the woman they were about to erase. Henderson handed me a pen. My fingers didn't tremble. As I held the pen, I looked up and said softly, "Before I sign anything, may I ask one small thing?" "Of course," Henderson said. "Could I see the clause that lets me revoke this agreement if I ever choose to?" Vanessa froze. Henderson blinked. "Well, technically, you could revoke it, but it would require a hearing." I finished for him. "Yes, ma'am. So once I sign, I'm no longer in charge of my own name." Vanessa laughed lightly. "Mom, please. Don't be dramatic." I met her gaze steady, calm. "You're right. Drama is beneath me." I leaned back in my chair. "But theft isn't." The room went still. David frowned. "Mom, what are you talking about?" I set the pen down carefully. "About the money, the house, and the documents you forged to refinance it." Vanessa's face drained of color. "Excuse me, I have proof," I said quietly. "Every word, every laugh, every phone call." Henderson looked between us confused. "Proof of what exactly?" I turned toward him. "Proof that this woman," I pointed directly at Vanessa, "stole over $200,000 from me and has been gaslighting me for months to cover it up." Vanessa slammed her palm against the table. "This is ridiculous. She's delusional." I reached into my purse and pulled out a small black flash drive. "You'll find that hard to argue once you watch this." David's eyes widened. "Mom, what is that?" "The truth," I said. I handed the flash drive to Henderson. "Play it." He hesitated. Vanessa tried to snatch it, but I held firm. "Go ahead," I told him. "It's all there, her laughing when I fell, mocking me, plotting to put me in a nursing home, and even arranging the money transfer behind your back, David." The silence in that small office was so heavy, it felt like gravity itself had shifted. Vanessa's confidence cracked for the first time. You broke into our files. That's illegal." "So is theft," I said. David looked at me, then at her. "Vanessa, is this true?" She stood up, her face pale. "Of course not. She's manipulating you. She's sick enough." My voice came out steady, sharper than I expected. "For months, I let you humiliate me. I let you rewrite the story of who I was. But not anymore." I turned to Henderson. "I'd like to file a counterclaim to reinstate my name on the property and to freeze all joint accounts until an audit is complete." The lawyer blinked, startled. "That's possible, yes. But we'll need documentation. I smiled. You'll have everything you need. Every clip, every timestamp, every word she ever said when she thought I was too weak to fight back. Vanessa's voice cracked. You can't do this. I looked at her calm as ice. I already did. David sank into his chair, hands over his face. For the first time, I saw shame, real heavy shame, flood his expression. I didn't know he whispered. God, I didn't know. Vanessa grabbed her purse and stormed toward the door. You'll regret this, Nora, I called after her. No, you will. The door slammed. For a long moment, no one spoke. The rain outside had stopped, leaving the air strangely still. I turned to Henderson, my voice soft again. You'll make sure this meeting is recorded, won't you? He nodded slowly. Yes, ma'am. I stood smoothing my jacket. Good. Then the next time she laughs, it'll be in front of a judge. That afternoon, I walked out of the law office into the cool, clean air of Main Street. The rain had washed everything, the sidewalk, the sky, even me. I wasn't free yet, but for the first time in a long time, I was no longer powerless. The storm had broken, and I was the one holding the lightning. 2 days after the meeting at Henderson's office, the house was quieter than ever. Vanessa barely looked at me. David moved like a ghost, pacing the kitchen at night, drinking coffee at odd hours. I knew he was finally thinking about everything he'd ignored for months. Then on Sunday evening, Vanessa decided to put on a show. She announced at breakfast, "We're having dinner tonight, just family, no drama." Her voice was sugar on the outside steel underneath. I smiled. Of course. Family dinner. How nice. She didn't know I'd invited someone, too. At 6:00 p.m., the table was set. Candles, wine glasses, roast chicken, everything polished to perfection. The smell was warm, nostalgic, deceptive. Lily helped me bring plates from the kitchen. She whispered, "Grandma, are you okay?" I smiled at her. Not the weak smile I used before, but one that carried a promise. "I'm perfect, honey." David sat at the head of the table, shoulders tense. Vanessa poured him wine, acting the part of the devoted wife. "To new beginnings," she said, raising her glass. I raised mine too. Yes, to truth. She froze for a second, then forced a smile. To truth. The first 20 minutes were normal, small talk, awkward laughter, the clinking of silverware. Then came the knock on the door. Vanessa frowned. "Were you expecting someone?" "Yes," I said simply. "Mr. Henderson." The lawyer stepped inside, rain still glistening on his coat. He carried a small laptop and a file folder. "Evening, everyone," he said. "Apologies for the intrusion, but Mrs. Ellington requested I stop by with a few documents to review." Vanessa's smile vanished. "This is not the time." "It's all right," I said gently. "It won't take long." I gestured to the large TV mounted on the wall, the one Vanessa used for her security app demonstrations. "Would you mind connecting that laptop to the screen, Mr. Henderson?" He nodded, setting up quickly. The blue glow of the television filled the dining room. "What is this?" Vanessa demanded. "Some kind of stunt." "No," I said quietly. "It's the truth you were so eager to toast to." The first video began to play. The screen showed the kitchen me on the floor, clutching my knee. Vanessa standing over me, phone in hand, that cruel laugh echoing through the room. Lily gasped. "That's when you fell." Vanessa jumped up. "Turn it off." David didn't move. His eyes were fixed on the screen, wide, stunned. Then came her voice from the recording. "At your age, one fall could finish the job." The room went dead silent. Next clip. Vanessa at the garden brunch, smiling sweetly as she said, "We've been looking at assisted living options, somewhere safe." The other women's laughter. My face turning red, the broken glass glinting in the sun. Then the third clip. Vanessa on the phone, in the living room, glass of wine in hand. "The money's gone. She'll never know." David covered his mouth. "Oh my God." "Stop it," Vanessa screamed. "This is illegal. You can't record me." I stood slowly. "You recorded me first. Remember your cameras? You bragged about them. They remember everything." She turned to David, desperate. "She's manipulating this. You know how technology works." She edited it, but then came the fourth video, her on the phone with the unknown man. "The old bat trusts me completely. Once the funds clear, she'll be drooling in a nursing home." David's chair scraped back hard. "Vanessa, what did you do?" she stammered, shaking her head. "It's not what it sounds like." "Then what is it?" he shouted. "Because it sounds like theft and cruelty and—" His voice broke. "And the woman who raised me lying on the floor while you laughed," Vanessa's lip quivered. "David, please." Lily started crying. "Mommy, why did you laugh at Grandma?" The sound of that small, trembling voice broke whatever mask Vanessa had left. She turned pale eyes darting from me to David and to the lawyer. Mr. Henderson spoke gently. "Mrs. Ellington, these recordings are sufficient to press both criminal and civil charges." "But your mother—" "She's not my mother," Vanessa screamed, her voice cracking. David slammed his fist on the table. "Enough!" The plates rattled. Wine spilled across the tablecloth. He looked at me. Really. Looked at me for the first time in years. His eyes were wet, full of shame. "Mom," he whispered, "I'm sorry." I took a deep breath. "You don't need to be sorry, David. Just be better than this." Vanessa stepped back, trembling. "You can't prove anything in court. It's just video. It doesn't show context." "Context," I said softly. "Then let's add some." I reached into my purse and pulled out a small envelope. Inside was the printed bank statement showing the transfer. My $200, $1,000 moved into a joint account under Vanessa's maiden name. She froze. "Proof," I said, "with timestamps that match your call." David took the papers, reading them with shaking hands. Then he looked up at her. "It's over, Vanessa." She tried to speak, but no sound came out. Her body trembled with rage and humiliation. "You think you can just ruin me?" she spat finally. "You're an old woman. Nobody believes people like you anymore." I smiled, calm and steady. "They will when they see the footage. I've already sent copies to Henderson, my bank, and the police department." She paled. The silence that followed was suffocating. Then Lily spoke again, her voice small and trembling. "Mommy, are you going away?" Vanessa's eyes filled with tears, but not the kind that came from guilt, the kind that came from fear. She grabbed her purse and stormed out of the room, slamming the door so hard the candles flickered out. For a long moment, no one spoke. Only the faint hum of the television filled the space, looping the still frame of her cruel smile. David sank to his knees beside my chair. "Mom," he said, his voice breaking. "How do I fix this?" I placed a hand on his head the way I used to when he was little. "You start by remembering who you are," I whispered, "and who raised you to be better." He nodded, tears falling freely. Outside, the rain started again, soft at first, then steady, washing the world clean. I turned toward the window and exhaled. The house, for the first time in years, felt quiet in a way that wasn't heavy. Justice didn't always roar. Sometimes it whispered through truth, through timing, through a blinking red light that never lied. And tonight it whispered my name. It's strange how quiet justice can sound. There's no music, no applause, no grand announcement. Just silence and truth, finally breathing after being buried for too long. The morning after the dinner, the house felt different, lighter somehow. Vanessa's perfume no longer lingered in the hallway. Her expensive heels weren't scattered by the door. The air didn't feel like I was borrowing it anymore. David sat at the kitchen table staring at the black coffee in front of him. He hadn't said much since last night. His eyes were hollow red from crying. Lily sat beside him, coloring in her notebook, her world too innocent to understand what had just collapsed around her. When I walked in, she smiled softly. "Grandma, is Mommy coming back?" David swallowed hard. He looked at me silently, begging me to answer. I sat down beside her, brushing a curl from her forehead. "Not for a while, sweetheart," I said gently. "Mommy needs some time to think about what she did." She nodded, thoughtful. "Daddy said lying hurts people." "Yes," I whispered. "It always does." By noon, the police arrived, polite but firm. They had a warrant for financial misconduct and evidence tampering. Vanessa didn't fight it. When they found her, she was at her sister's house on the other side of town, bags half-packed trying to transfer what was left in the joint account. But the accounts were already frozen. I'd made sure of that with Mr. Henderson's help. The neighbors watched as the patrol car pulled away, lights flashing red and blue against the white fences. People whispered, of course. They always do. But this time the whispers weren't about me. Did you hear she stole from her mother-in-law and laughed while the poor woman fell? They say the whole thing was caught on camera. Vanessa had always cared about appearances. Her designer clothes, her curated Instagram, the perfect family she paraded at church. Now that perfection was her undoing. The footage circulated faster than I expected. David gave copies to the police, to the bank, even to the local news when they asked for comment. He didn't do it for revenge. He did it because shame can't live in silence. For the first time, my son stood for something again. When he came home that night, he sat across from me, the same boy who used to beg for chocolate milk before bedtime, now broken and 40 years old. "Mom," he said quietly, "I don't know how to face you." I took his hand. By not looking away, he nodded slowly. "They're charging her with fraud and elder abuse. The lawyer said she could face 5 to 10 years. I didn't smile. I didn't cheer. Justice isn't joy, it's relief, heavy and quiet. "I don't want her in prison," I said softly. "I just want her out of my life." "She will be," he said. "The house is yours again. I already signed the papers back." For a moment I couldn't speak. The weight I'd carried for months, maybe years, lifted not all at once, but enough to let me breathe again. "Thank you," I whispered. He squeezed my hand. "No, Mom. Thank you for not giving up on me even when I didn't deserve it." A week later, I went for a walk downtown, something I hadn't done in months. The air smelled like fresh bread and rain. At Millie's Diner, the same waitress who'd once told me, "Don't let them make you small," waved from behind the counter. "Well, look at you," she said, grinning. "You're glowing, Nora. Heard some folks got what was coming." I laughed softly. "News travels fast here." "In this town, justice travels faster," she said, refilling my coffee. We talked for a while about Frank, about work, about how life has a way of circling back. She listened quietly when I told her everything. At the end, she patted my hand and said, "You didn't just stand up for yourself. You stood up for every woman who's ever been silenced in her own home." Her words stayed with me, because deep down, I knew she was right. What happened wasn't just about me, it was about dignity, about every forgotten mother and grandmother who's been told her worth expired with her youth. That evening, David brought Lily over to my room. She carried a small drawing me, her and her dad standing under a big sun. No mommy this time. She said, "Grandma Daddy said we're going to stay here for a while. Is that okay?" I smiled through the tears that rose in my throat. "Of course it is, sweetheart. This is your home too." She hugged me tight, whispering, "I like it when it's quiet again." I held her close. And for the first time since Frank died, the house finally felt like home again, not because it was big or beautiful, but because peace had come back to it. A few days later, a letter arrived from Vanessa's lawyer. It was short, bitter, and full of excuses, apologies laced with blame. I didn't reply. Instead, I went out to the porch, sat in Frank's old rocking chair, and watched the sunset melt across the horizon. The cicadas hummed. The wind moved through the trees. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell rang. I closed my eyes and whispered, "We made it, Frank. You'd be proud." The security camera above the porch blinked once, its red light still steady, still watching, as if it had been part of the story all along. I smiled. "You can rest now. So can I." Justice didn't roar. It didn't destroy. It restored. And sometimes that's the loudest kind of revenge there is. The morning light hit the kitchen window, softly turning everything gold, the curtains, the countertop, even the old coffee pot that had survived more years than I cared to count. It was the same house, same walls, same creaky floorboards, but it finally felt mine again. Lily's laughter echoed down the hallway. David was fixing a loose cabinet door, humming a tune Frank used to whistle. Peace had a sound, and for the first time in a long time, I recognized it. I sat at the table with my cup of tea, the kind Frank always said tasted like liquid courage. The security camera still blinked above the door, the silent witness that had seen everything from cruelty to redemption. It's strange how life works. For months, that blinking light made me feel small, watched, trapped. Now it made me feel safe. Sometimes the same thing that exposed your pain ends up saving you. I thought about everything that had happened, the laughter when I fell, the humiliation in front of neighbors, the lies, the theft. But I also thought about what came after the truth, the courage, the stillness after the storm. People often think justice looks like revenge, but it doesn't. Justice is when you can finally look at yourself in the mirror and not see a victim staring back. A few weeks later, I got a letter from the county office, the final paperwork restoring my name on the deed. I ran my fingers over it, smiling through tears. Not because of the money, not even the house. It was about something bigger, respect. That word had been missing from my life for a long time. Respect isn't about age. It's not something you demand with fear or titles. It's earned through love, and it's destroyed by cruelty. Vanessa had everything: beauty, charm, ambition, but she lacked respect. And in the end, that's what took everything from her. They said she took a plea deal. 2 years probation, community service, restitution. I didn't ask for more. I didn't need more. The real punishment was knowing the mask she'd worn for years had shattered for good. As for David, he changed. He started coming home early from work. He cooked dinner, cleaned up after Lily, and sometimes he'd just sit with me in silence, the kind of silence that doesn't hurt anymore. One evening he said something that stayed with me. "Mom," he whispered, staring at the flickering TV light, "I used to think strength meant not feeling anything. Now I see it's the opposite. You stood in the fire and didn't let it turn you cruel." I smiled, touching his hand. "That's what love does. It hurts you, but it doesn't have to harden you." He nodded, eyes glistening. Last Sunday, I took Lily to church. When the choir started singing Amazing Grace, she squeezed my hand and whispered, "Grandma, is that your favorite song?" I laughed softly. "It is now." After the service, an older woman stopped me near the door. She'd heard what happened. Everyone had. She said, "I wish I'd done what you did when my daughter-in-law tried to take my savings." I stayed quiet. "You didn't." Her words hit me hard. I didn't feel proud. I just felt seen. Because that's all we ever want, isn't it? To be seen, not as a burden, not as a problem, but as a person who still matters. That night, I sat on the porch with a blanket over my knees, the sun setting slow and soft across the small-town horizon. The crickets sang. The air smelled like summer again. I looked straight into the camera by the door and smiled. "You caught everything," I whispered. "Now let this be the last thing you record, peace." I closed my eyes and thought of Frank, of the hospital nights, of the laughter of every meal I'd cooked, every bruise I'd hidden, every time I'd stayed silent when I should have spoken. No more silence. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this: age doesn't make you invisible. Kindness doesn't make you weak. And standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's sacred. We raise our children to be strong, but sometimes we forget to stay strong for ourselves. We teach them to speak up, but sometimes we let our own voices fade. So to every mother, every grandmother listening to me now, if they ever make you feel small, remember this story. Remember that you built the very ground they're standing on. And if they laugh when you fall, let them. Because one day, the truth will play back louder than their laughter. The porch light flickered on and Lily came running out with a drawing in her hand. "Grandma, look." It was a picture of the two of us sitting on the porch, the camera blinking above. She'd written in big, uneven letters, "Home is safe again." I smiled through tears, pulling her into my arms. "Yes, sweetheart," I whispered. "Home is safe again." The wind carried her laughter into the twilight, pure, soft, untainted. And for the first time, I let myself laugh too, not in bitterness, not in victory, but in peace. Because after everything, the pain, the betrayal, the proof, the justice, I finally understood what Frank meant all those years ago when he'd touch my hand and say, "Respect isn't something people give you, Nora. It's something you carry no matter who tries to take it away." And I was carrying mine again.